The Dingers podcast is on the air. I'm your host, Mitch. I'm here with Ian, and we're recording live Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And the Cubs and it's the ninth inning, and the Cubs just
gave up the lead.
Just gave up the lead. So it's 2-2. They still got a chance to win, but This is like instant reaction for that. What better time to start talking about the Cubs when we're frustrated talking about the Cubs? How are you doing, Ian?
I've seen better baseball in my life, but yeah. Oh, I mean, Neris just got Yandy out on 3 straight pitches, all strikes. So
that's Neris can look so good and look so bad in the same inning or in the same at bat. Like, it's so frustrating with Neris.
Yeah.
But man, it has been a rough stretch for the Cubs. I will put it a little bit perspective. I want to start our episode with this. In 2023, the Cubs' worst stretch during that season was a 26-36 stretch in 43 games. So there are 23 right now. Currently, their stretch, they're on a 31-34 stretch in 39 games.
I mean, it's marginally better.
So they went from that season in 2023, they went from 12-7 record to a 26-36 record. And so they went on a 14-29 stretch where they lost 29, won 14. And then this year they started out 17-9 to a 31-34 record.
Yeah. And I think what makes all of this so frustrating is there's just games that have just gotten away from them. Really early on in the season, we were all talking on an episode about how just winning series against your division rivals meant something and mattered, and they were doing that at the time, and that went completely away. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but MBD Chicago does this really interesting thing where he looks at the Cubs in 9-game segments. And so far, they started 6-3, then went 5-4, 6-3, 4-5, 4-5, 2-7. And their most recent 9, right before the last Cincinnati series and this Tampa Bay series, they were 4-5. And so now you look at, okay, well, looking at this series, they're what? 2-1, or no, 1-2 at this point.
1-2.
Yeah, 1-2 in this little stretch, with tonight's game undecided, but not exactly pretty. As Neris looks like he's about to walk
bases loaded.
Mr. Lau. Is it Lau or Low in Tampa? It's Lau, right?
What's even worse is the Cubs haven't won 3 games in a row since April 24th through 26th. They haven't strung together wins or kind of got on a roll where you can kind of start feeling this team.
And a walk-off homer to lose it.
And I'm late.
So walk-off 3-run homer. 5-2. All right. Well, that's frustrating. You were up 2-0 pretty much from middle of the game on.
Is this the new low? Have we gotten it lower this season, or is this low? Is this the low of the season?
I think it depends on how this series against Tampa and the next series against St. Louis rides out.
Because that's pretty low. Like this is a team like the Rays, dead last in their division. struggling. You have their star Rosarina not being a star. Rays are pretty much the Cubs. They look a lot the same as far as players having really bad seasons that expected to be really good. And this is a team that we should beat. We have better pitching. Even though we're facing one of their best pitchers tonight, we had the lead going into late.
Well, and that's the thing is like Eflin gave up 7 hits, and Clevenger, Armstrong, and Adam all gave up a hit apiece, and you couldn't score more than 2 runs on 10 hits.
We just got done playing in Cincinnati, and we didn't score over 5 runs once.
Right.
This offense has been absolutely horrendous. And like what I think the Cubs, we got away with it in the beginning of the season was our pitching was so good. Our starting pitching was so dominant.
Yeah.
But then when that faltered and injuries started happening to our starting pitching, it kind of masked a little bit of our offensive struggles. Because at that point, the only guy that was really going was we had 2. We had Seiya and Morale that were going early on. Bellinger still hasn't got it going.
Nope.
I will say one bright spot is Dansby has been kind of turning it around a little bit in the last couple series.
Yeah.
But man, our offense is, you said it, to only push across 2 runs tonight
on 10 hits.
And yeah, 10 hits. Like we put the ball in play. Bodie's been playing great lately. He had 3 hits the other day. He had a great pinch hit to drive in the second run tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like if you can get to someone like Eflin and get 7 hits on a night when he just isn't feeling it, like that's when you got to, like that's when you have to capitalize. And tonight, JMO only gave up 4 hits.
JMO pitched well.
Right. He gives you 6 innings, a 4-hit ball. Leiter comes in and only gives up a hit, doesn't give up a run, and then the kicked ball by Amaya. I mean, it's new and creative ways to lose every single time. And now they're running out of new and creative ways to lose. So now they're just reiterating and regurgitating ways to lose.
I knew the run where when Belly hit that one and Amaya didn't score, that run would come back to haunt them. And just having like a little bit of more of a cushion, I feel like Neris, when games get tighter, Neris like he starts freaking out. Like he just puts pressure, like, and then he starts nibbling. And like the other night I saw him come in, he looked really dominant and he was throwing his fastball a lot more rather than, I know he has a really good split, but dude, like,
well, and that's the thing is like, and that you run into comments like what Jed made today of all of our solutions can't be external. The people who are here have to start producing. Well, that's true to an extent. The extent to which it's not true is he had ample time this offseason to make those external solutions internal. And he just didn't do it. And I'm now like getting this feeling where I don't know what it is, but it's this weird feeling. And I've had it for the last couple seasons where I don't know if players like Jed. And I don't know if agents like Jed. And I say this because how many names have the Cubs been in on over the last couple off seasons that have been valuable free agents that have just kind of ended up somewhere else? Like scratch the theory of Ohtani, because he was never going anywhere but LA. We all know that now. Like it's an irrelevant thing. He just wanted to drive up his price. But like, what other names were we in on that we just didn't get? And is it does Jed have anything to do with that? Is it the way that Jed comes across? You know, because we're looking at a situation where we now understand this roster isn't exceptionally well built. There's a lot of redundancy, and there's a lot of players with kind of duplicative skill sets. And it's killing me a little bit because I think this team would be in worse shape. I don't know how much more of worse shape if Ross were still here. And it's like I said in our group text, like, I think Council's having some Art Howe moments lately where he is like, the lineup card is mine, and I'm going to show you how crappy this roster actually may be. Whether you like it or not, I'll find a way to get players that I like. Well, and I don't know if the Ricketts have severe loyalty to Jed. I just don't. Yeah, I mean, right now it's a mess. I don't know how you fix the problems. There's maybe Band-Aid solutions, but at this point, I'm very much nearing the point of let's see what the kids can actually do. Just bring them all up at this point.
And the problem, I don't know if I would say that they're not coming here because of Jed. I don't know if I'm willing to say that yet. I am thinking that they have put stock in the guys that they have on this lineup, and they almost put too much stock in the guys that they have, thinking that they're gonna get better and keep progressing like Ian Happ. I think now we kind of know who Ian Happ is. He's not a star.
Right.
He's not. He's a supporting cast. Nico Hoerner. We kind of know who he is, even though he's regressed this year. He's not a star.
Right.
He's a supporting cast. Mike Talkman, supporting cast.
And he's been the Cubs' best player as of late.
By far been the Cubs' best player.
And that's an alarming thing.
And you have Dansby Swanson, who's supposed to be the star of the show, and he's played more like a supporting cast role member. And I'll say even when he was in Atlanta, he wasn't the star. Ronald Acuna was the star.
Right.
Like, he was the one getting, like, Dansby is good. He's a great ball player, but he's not one that's going to put butts in the seats, and he's not one that's going to like carry the team for a stretch.
Right.
And you went out and you got Bellinger to come back. But again, even though Belly had a good stretch last year, if you take his whole season last year, he wasn't a star.
No.
He was a good ball player. There's no star on this team. And there's a whole bunch of supporting role players that aren't even living up to their end of the bargain of being good supporting role members.
Right.
So they've all regressed. Like, I was like trying to think about, like, I use the analogy of like Saved by the Bell, like trying to find like supporting roles. Like, Zach Morris was a great character, but what made him great was that you had an AC Slater and a Screech and a real hot Kelly Kapowski there to make everything a lot better.
Right. That was your star power.
Yeah. Yep. We don't have a hot Kelly Kapowski, even though Dansby Swanson's a good looking dude. Like, he's just not doing it for me right now.
Handsome as all get out. I mean, that's a really good way to put it. Like, you know, it's, if you look at this roster in terms of how it's constructed and whether there's an A-list actor on this roster, the answer is no. Dansby and Cody are probably B-listers, and everybody else is like a C or D-list actor that get constant recurring roles on television, with the exception, I guess Seiya, you could throw him up into the B-list category. Like, when he's not hurt, when he's on, like had a really great bounce back game the other night. And especially after being a scratch from one game, like kind of interesting, but you're right. There's just no star. And
I mean, like the Marvel movies wouldn't have been as good if they would have got a whole bunch of B-listers. No, they went and got like Gwyneth Paltrow. They got like Robert Downey Jr. They got
you got Chris Evans.
Yes, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson. They got like star power.
That's America's ass.
Yeah.
Like
and so like you texted in our group, like I think we got hoodwinked a little bit, like at the beginning of the season, like we were thinking, oh, this team is legit, and it's like they were, but I think they were still overperforming like what they did last year for a stretch. The thing that throws a wrench in all this is the NL Central sucks so bad that even this crappy team could still make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we're still, 7 games behind before the All-Star break as it stands right now is not, it's really not that.
Well, look at the wild card. What are we in the wild card?
I think we're still even in the second spot.
We're 1 game back in the wild card.
Oh, okay. So
after
we're 1 game back.
After tonight's. So it's like even that's like.
But I'm just talking about winning the division too. Like 7 games is doable at this point in a season.
We're a bad team that could still make, like a very bad team that could still make the playoffs, because like we talked about last week, there are only 5 teams above 500 in the whole NL. There's only 5 teams that are above 500.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. The Phillies, the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Braves, and the Padres. Everybody else, the Giants have a 33-34 record, and they're in the last spot in the wild card.
So the NL, in other words, is just garbage. And our only hope of the Dodgers being dethroned is the Phillies. At this point, I guess like what I can't seem to wrap my head around now is like Jed is right to a point. The players that are here have to perform to just the level that they can perform, and it probably evens out a little bit. Like it probably becomes like maybe you're a 550 team or a 575 team if your players that are here are just playing to their abilities. But the players aren't even doing that. And so, now we're sitting in this situation of we need to decide sooner than later what this season is going to be, or at least Jed does. Like sooner than later what this season is going to be. Are we selling, or are we going to try to get a playoff spot? Flat out. Like, what's the goal? Is it to actually build the next great Cubs team, as we've heard for many off seasons now? Or is it just keep cashing paychecks because it's literally the most loyal fan base on the planet?
And it's like, okay, so I get us fans, we want changes. And like Robbie here, when will changes be made to this roster? Like, I get it. I get that we want changes. I want changes. Let's say we go out and we get Vlad Guerrero.
Right, but who do you give up for him? Like,
what's your Pete Alonso? Exactly. Is that going to, like, really Vlad Guerrero you're getting for a season and a half? Because I don't see the Cubs team, and really like his OPS would be like the 5th best OPS on, if he was to join the Cubs roster, he'd be like 5th.
Right.
He's having an okay season, but I don't think he's great defensively at first. Yes, he could DH, but then you have Morel, and they're already trying to figure out what other things they could do. Who else could play third besides Morel? It's like, so are you willing to jeopardize future for a short-term fix that might not even work out?
Right.
And so I
like Arcaldi, his comment here. Who do we have to sell? Most of the team is locked up or has no trade. That, aside from that being very true, Jake and I have talked about this a lot. Somehow our farm system is consistently ranked in the top of Major League Baseball. Like, we have like the second most prospects in the top 100.
But again, it almost reflects our Major League roster. There's a whole bunch of supporting role characters and no stars.
And
there's
I'm like,
no A-lister.
Right. I'm like, if you were even going to trade a prospect for a star, who are you trading? Because if there was a sheer like, Canario is destroying AAA lately, and I mean, on paper it looks fun, but like, is he just Nelson Velasquez? I think I was talking to Jake about that. I think Jake made that comparison too. Like, is he just Nelson Velasquez 2.0?
Yeah.
I think the answer is probably yes.
Yeah. Nelson Velasquez
trade him for bad pitching.
Nelson Velasquez is not doing great in KC this year.
No, he's
last year. And like, we could go out and make trades. Like you said, get a competent catcher. Yes. All these things are things that should have been addressed during the off season.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't be in this situation because they should have been addressed in the off season.
Right. And Arcaldi, sorry, I inverted what you were saying. I was even talking about us buying. Like, who do we have to buy with? And that's the bigger kick. Like, what's appealing? Robbie here, get a competent catcher, a competent closer, and a competent bat. Everybody knows the holes we have on this team for the last 3 years, and yet nothing happens year after year. Where's the accountability on Jed? Jed must have blackmail photos of Tom Ricketts doing something. Like, I don't know what it is, because I feel like most other GMs, especially in today's game, would just be out the door. Just out the door. Like,
okay, here's a question. Let's say we go and make some trades. What holes are you going to fill? Because I don't know, because they're not going to sell the whole farm.
No.
To fill all of these holes. So are you going to go get pitching? Are you going to go get bullpen help? Or are you going to go get a bat?
Right. I think if you were to buy, if you're in a situation where buying is a reality, and we'll know far more about buying by the end of this Tampa series and the end of the Cardinals series, I think we'll know where we stand and which way this season is going to go by the end of the Tampa and by the end of Tampa and the next Cardinal series. I think we'll know. So you're right. You can't fix those three holes of catcher, bat, and closer. Bregman and Presley, that's an interesting. I just hate Alex Bregman, but that's
well, and I think Jake has talked at length of how he is not high on Bregman, because I think he hits well in the Astros stadium because of the boxes, what are they called? Crawford boxes.
Yeah.
Like, that's why he hits so well. His away splits aren't very good. I even thought about this. Like, okay, right now Tampa isn't selling.
No.
And really they're still in it to make the playoffs. So why would they sell? Now the Mets, on the other hand, they're out of it. Like, Mets are metting hard right now. Pete Alonso would be available, and he's talked about he would like to play for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Like that might be one where you could make a trade and get a long-term guy at first. And at least that fills up a bat and it fills up a hole that we've had for years. And we've had Michael Busch kind of play a little bit of second. Like he can play third a little bit. His bat needs to come around, it's proven in the minor leagues. So that would maybe be one that you could maybe do. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, all right, well, that's a bat. So in theory, you can only fill one more of those holes mid-season this season. So what to you is more important? Is it a decent enough catcher, one that isn't kicking balls away to give up a run, or is it a closer or, like a premier bullpen arm? What is it?
I think the bullpen will be all right once we get Almonte back, once we get Merriweather back. Like we've had a lot of injuries that we have dudes that are either injured.
Ben Brown today.
Like in Ben Brown, like, so that's really hurt. So I think bullpen at full strength, we're all right. Do we need a lockdown closer still? Yes. And that's something that has to be addressed in this next offseason. We have to get a guy that teams are afraid to face
right
in the ninth inning. Like Neris, you just got to wait him out. He's going to either walk you or throw you a mistake pitch. Like teams figured that out.
Tonight.
Yeah. It's almost easy now. It's like, just wait him out. Like he's gonna, so like for me, like we've put stock in the deals with Nico and with Dansby and with Ian. And at the time I love the deals, but I'm still not sold on them being the stars of what they're trying to promote them as. They're not. They're not. They're guys that think they're A-listers or B-listers, but they're not. They're not there.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like we don't have A-listers. It's like I feel like the hashtag for this episode is we don't have A-listers. Robbie called this out, year 4 of a rebuild, like fire the architect, fire the general contractor. Architect of this. And I had an exchange with somebody on Twitter just the other day as well about how Jed has kind of made a mess of this. He's been at the helm since 2020. What Theo was gone. Theo's last year was 2019 into the 2020 season. So everything from 2020 on is Jed's doing, right? Like that's, I think we can all agree. Like, and the returns for Javi, KB, and Rizzo, and I guess even at the time, Craig Kimbrell, not great so far. The return for Kimbrell was Madrigal and Cody Hoyer, was it not?
Yep.
And look what that's done. One may never play baseball again, and the other has been one of the most frustrating members of the Lollipop Guild that I have ever seen. And he just fractured his hand. So, like, whatever that is whatever that is.
I did say last time we aired a podcast, I never wanted to speak his name ever again. That he would never be called back up for the Cubs. So I'm sticking to that
now.
I'm sticking to that. I never want to speak of his name as related to the Cubs again.
Nick Mad should be selling cotton candy. Oh, Joe, that's brutal. Oh yeah, the Sox did give us a choice. That's right. In that trade. And so yeah, and then what? the KB return was Alcantara and was it Vizcaíno? I feel like that feels right. Or was that part of the Rizzo return?
We got Ben Brown for one of them.
Yeah, and then obviously the hobby trade for PCA is still TBD. The flashes are great.
But even that, like, he's a defensive guy out there, and he boots the ball tonight. It's not going to be an error, but a star center fielder would get that ball, pick it, and give you a chance to throw out a guy at home. Instead, he misplays it, lets the guy score easily. Like, it's that, right?
Oh man,
I have those talks with my son all the time. Like, and he's playing 9U baseball. Like, field the ball cleanly, give yourself a chance. Like,
yeah,
pick it clean and throw it clean. Like, if you can't pick it clean, you don't even give yourself a chance. So, like, you got to start there. Like,
totally.
And PCA misplays a little bit and bobbles it and easily scores.
Big time thanks for all of you engaging in the comments. Like you're saving our butts right now, because it's so frustrating. You're like, so many people are so frustrated right now, and there's some good ones coming in. Like, I wish we could sit here and highlight other fans like comments here of just, you can't expect this from Joe. Can't expect this team to actually compete the way the roster currently is. That's 100% correct. You can't, because there's too much redundancy. There's like just duplicated skill sets. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't even, it doesn't play now, and it's playing less and less as the season goes on.
We put a ton of stock in big years out of the same guys that had big years last year. We expected gas money Jan Gomes to have another big year, and he's strolling his way to a retirement home and barely can get out there and catch. His pitch framing has been horrible. Like, his hitting has been non-existent. Belly, like, has had regression. We signed him again, hoping to get the same Belly. Like, that's why I said at the end of last year's episode, like, I'm a little bit concerned about giving Belly the money. Does he make the team better this year with the way roster was? Yes. Like, but we should have done more. We should have got more. Nico, he had a big year last year, a big step forward. And he hasn't, because of a lot of probably injuries, taken that another step. But still, we're asking guys to do more and be more than they actually are. And that's never a recipe for a successful athlete, when you're trying to demand and ask more out of their skill set. It's like, there's role players on teams for reasons. Like, I grew up loving the Chicago Bulls. I became a Chicago Bulls fan because of BJ Armstrong, because I'm an Iowa Hawkeye basketball fan, and BJ Armstrong got drafted by the Bulls. I'm like, all right, I'm a Bulls fan. They just happen to have the best player in the world playing on that team, and became a huge Bulls fan. But like,
yep.
The reason why Jordan was so good is because he had a BJ Armstrong, a Horace Grant.
He had Tony Kukoc,
a Will Purdue. Like, you name all of them throughout the 6 championships. And they were good sporting casts that didn't have to be asked to do more than what they were, because they had a star or 3 stars. This Cubs team, we're asking, it's like asking BJ Armstrong to be Michael Jordan. Can't do that. Like, we're asking these guys to be more and do more. And we got lucky last year. They outperformed what they were. And we're trying to do it again, and it's just not there. Like,
well, you're right. There's enough tape on it now to understand who these guys are and how they play. They overperformed. And I shudder to think that if they weren't put in specific situations this year, by their manager, that this team would probably be, and I'll I'll beat this drum forever. This team would be way worse off. Like we would be maybe nearing Colorado Rockies territory if Ross were still here. You can see the cutthroat decisions that Craig is making because he's not emotionally attached to any of these players. And that's probably the best thing for these players right now is you overperformed last year. We're asking you.
But I'll push back. Did they overperform because of David Ross?
No, because they still scuttered at the like it just was bad at the end.
I'm just saying, like, David Ross isn't a great in-game manager, but he's a great relationship person. And I know that I played way better when I had somebody that did all the things behind the scenes to make me feel good. And I don't think Craig Counsell does those things.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't. I'm just trying to play a little bit of devil because, like, I get David Ross made a lot of mistakes last year in-game managing. Like, he wasn't a great in-game manager, but there was something that David Ross did really, really well, and that was create probably a really good clubhouse. There's a reason why Cody Bellinger loved his time in Chicago is because probably had a lot to do with David Ross. And so, like, you'd see like this struggling stretch and it's lasted this long. You have to put a little bit that on Craig Counsell. Things need to get better. He needs to do his job and manage this team behind the scenes a little bit better. Yeah, he can put people in the right positions, but he also has to like figure out how to get in their head and be able to navigate those struggles and unlock those things to help them get out of it, to get back. Cause it's,
He did give players a longer leash than I would have wanted to this season. Someone like Kyle, for example, or Madrigal, you know, just to name a few of players that probably shouldn't have been put in the spots they were. What I hope for and what I think that we can understand now is ultimately it doesn't matter who's managing this team.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, you could have David Ross, who's, you know, everybody's best friend and creates a really good clubhouse environment, or you could have Craig Counsell, who's down to business, you know, a better manager on the margins, like in theory, just a better tactical manager.
Yeah, he is.
And it doesn't matter who it is. This team was bad to end last year. They were okay to start this year, and it's just not. And now we just know they're not good. Like, it's just not a good baseball team. It is an average baseball team at best.
And I think it would be a little bit better. Like, I could take it if like they were good at something.
Right. But they're not good at anything.
Right. Like, it was right at the beginning of the season because their starting pitching was so dominant and good. And that was without Justin Steele. And it's like, okay, give me like something, like either be a home run hitting team that like loses. I can deal with that. At least it's fun to watch them hit a whole bunch of dingers.
Yeah.
Like I can be down with that, even though I hate losing. Like, at least like you got something that we're good at. We're not good at anything right now.
Right.
We can't pitch. We can't. Bullpen is garbage. We can't score runs. Like, this is just bad all the way around.
Right. There is one bright spot, you know, not to just hammer into this team. There is one bright spot, and I got to keep giving it up to the guy, but Shota is just...
Okay, there we go. He has been the bright spot, the glimmer of hope.
Right. And you know, Javier's been okay at times. Like, I know he's had a little bit of a rough stretch lately, and that's fine, but you know, he wasn't going to carry on with his sub-2 ERA for the entire season. Shota, on the other hand, might actually carry on with his sub-2.
Yeah. Joe brings up that you can't hit with runners in scoring position at all.
No. Haven't been able to for the last 3 years, basically.
This team is the worst in MLB since May 13th. The worst in baseball with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
They're hitting below 180.
That's so bad. and it's just like, tonight, like it was the most glaring thing. It's when you and I were prepping to go live, and I was watching Amaya's at bat for the top of the ninth. It was just uncompetitive, just hideously uncompetitive. And and so now, like, I am looking ahead to the off season at this point, because I'm like, okay, there's holes, we got to fix it. And this season's not even halfway done. And I'm like, okay, how do we salvage something? How do we make this season to where the summer's not the most difficult thing I've ever watched?
It was, we already said it, but what's worse about this is some bad baseball.
Yeah.
And we're still only a game out of the playoff spot.
Right.
Game. Like, if we were a game out of the playoffs with a week left to go, we'd be like, all right, let's go. Like, we got this. We can get it. Instead, it's the middle of the year, not even the middle, and we're one game out of a playoff spot, and we're like, this is we have not said one thing nice about the Cubs, besides your Shota take.
Shota rolled
the whole time, like, because this is just bad baseball, like bad baseball being played. And so, like, even defense, like, we could hang our hat on that we have really good defense, but
last year we did.
Catching has been horrible up the middle. We've been outfield has been booting balls. Third base and first base horrible. No matter who we put at third base, they're booting balls. Oh, I said 2 weeks ago that by the end of June we were going to be 3.5 games back in the division. I had a little bit of hope. Right now, I'm not in a good place, and that ain't happening.
It's positive to get that to that point in the next week. If you got to take care of the next 2 in Tampa, and you have to beat the Cardinals 3 times. Like, you have to win 3 games in a row at some point. Like, at some point, the math just has to be in your favor.
Well, they haven't done that since April 24th. Is won 3 games in a row,
right? And even the Rockies have gone on an 8-game winning streak this season, and it's like something has to give, and I don't know what it is. There were moments last year, like, where I got on, to be fair to Ross here, I got on him for basically running out a team that looked like they didn't care, that looked like they were comfortable and okay with losing at times. Craig seems to be doing that right now.
Well, especially when you start Wisdom and the leadoff spot.
Right.
And he said, like, no, the top of the order is going to be your best hitters. Okay. Because they're going to get more bats. Okay. Then you don't put Wisdom in the leadoff spot to get the most at bats in the game, and then he Ks 3 times.
Right.
That's not our best lineup. So I know injuries are the reason why he was there, and like I get, like, but still, come on.
Yeah,
there's got to be better somewhere. Put PCA there.
Yeah, put somebody else. Like, it doesn't even matter who it is. Patrick's been good in the situations he's been put in, but that was a bad situation to put him in. That was something that Ross would do in terms of setting a player up for failure. Like, right there. Like, you want to bat Patrick 8 or 9? Dude, I'm all for it, because there's been times where he has really shined this season and come through in those situations. But he was set up to fail. He was set up to fail. And I'm paying attention to the lineups and how games are managed, because I'm almost starting to wonder if there is a little bit of a screw you, pal, from Craig to Jed right now. of,
you give me this, this is what I'm going to do with it.
Right. Like I came here with the understanding that we were going to win. And I think we all had that understanding when we signed Craig this offseason. When he was signed to the largest managerial contract in MLB history, you don't sit there and do that and then have your fan base go, oh, yes, this means we're going to give him the pieces to succeed. But we all said that prior to the season. We're going to spend on the pieces for him to succeed. So we already knew we needed pieces.
I will say all the pieces that we talked in the offseason about him going and getting, none of them have done well this season besides Juan Soto.
Yeah. And I guess I sit there and I go, like, it's a very butterfly effect theory. And we're dealing in hypotheticals. Like, all right, would they have done better if they had come here? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
Like Jordan Montgomery, probably not.
Yeah. All right. Well, I said we were going to try and make this 35 minutes. We're at 46. So we're frustrated. You're frustrated. Hopefully the next time we get back on the mics, we have a little bit different tone, but I mean, what do you expect? We're recording live right after a horrible loss. That's all it is. It's bad. That was a bad loss. And that's a low. I would say that's the lowest point of the season so far. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough for me to want to turn on the TV tomorrow and watch this team play.
Yeah.
Just saying it. But I'll do it because I'm dumb and that's what I do.
I don't like myself. So
but yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for everybody in the comments. It was great interacting with you guys.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're subscribed to us on Tap Sports Network YouTube channel, and go check out ontapsportsnetwork.com where there's great articles every day about our Cubbies, and go follow our buddies, Cubs on Tap as well. They're great what they do, and give them a listen. They do a lot of pre and post game episodes. But yeah, thanks for listening. This is 157 of the Dingers podcast. Thanks, Ian, for jumping on with me. Go Cubs.
Go Cubs.
And it has to get better, right?
Has to.
All right. Go Cubs. Thanks for listening.